Tommy Vitor of Crooked Media, of Pod Save America, did this video talking about Miss Rachel, who is a wonderful children's content creator. And a lot of parents, I know some young parents who swear by her and how much she helps their kids and teaches them and allows them to learn. And she's recently been creating videos for the children in Gaza. And you see them smiling as they watch her videos surrounded by rubble. It's like an objectively beautiful thing. Not for the Israel lobby. They have been putting her on a list and targeting her with harassment for daring to care about the children in Gaza and making videos for them to cheer them up. Here's Tommy explaining what happened.
Nearly every parent with young kids has heard of Miss Rachel. She's a former teacher who makes adorable educational content for kids on YouTube. Her videos have gotten over 10 billion views, many of which were streamed to my house, by the way. But things haven't been so happy for Miss Rachel lately. Last week, a group called Stop Antisemitism, which is known for doxing students it perceives to be anti-Israel and then asking people to report them to ICE, they called on Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate whether Miss Rachel is getting paid to, quote, disseminate Hamas-aligned propaganda to her millions of followers, as this may violate Foreign Agents Registration Act. Allow me to unpack the many, many, many layers of bullshit in that sentence. First of all, Miss Rachel has never posted pro-Hamas propaganda, not even close. She's posted images of traumatized children in the Gaza Strip. She's raised over $50,000 for kids in conflict zones. That includes Sudan, Ukraine, and yes, Gaza. And she's posted about Israeli children who are being held hostage by Hamas. Do you see a through line there? She cares deeply about the well-being of children. Second, if Miss Rachel or anyone else was taking money from Hamas, they wouldn't be violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act or FARA. They would be working with a designated foreign terrorist organization. You have to register under FARA to lobby for a foreign country. DOJ wouldn't greenlight you doing PR for a terrorist organization, you morons. Third, this letter, which just happened to be leaked to the New York Post, how convenient, it suggests that Miss Rachel's social media posts were intended to inspire pro-Hamas sympathies among young kids. But these were Instagram posts. This was not her YouTube content for kids. I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot of 3-year-olds with Instagram accounts or opinions about the Middle East for that matter. This is nothing more than an attempt to silence someone who's trying to talk about the humanity of those suffering in Gaza and the need to protect all children. It's an outgrowth of the weaponization of social media that is being used to target critics of Israeli government policies and to have those individuals deported or otherwise punished by the Trump administration. Anti-Semitism is a real problem in this world, and it has been for centuries. It is absolutely critical that we call it out and we support Jews around the world who feel threatened or intimidated. But this attack on Miss Rachel is a cynical weaponization of a real problem for political purposes, and it will ultimately make the problem worse, not better. So to everybody out there, leave Miss Rachel the hell alone, or you will awaken an army of pissed off toddlers and exhausted parents.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And she posted this on her social media in reaction to this crazy harassment that Tommy did a good job of recapping there. Children have human rights. These rights are not just for some children. They are for all children. Standing up for children, especially those who are most vulnerable, is the right thing to do. And you know what I hear when I hear that? I hear her say, Jews be gone.
You are having an emotional breakdown right now.
I mean, come on.
This is it though. This is emblematic. This is not like a sort of unexpected thing. This is what groups like Stop Antisemitism, the Anti-Defamation League, a lot of these groups, they will claim anti-Semitism. What they really mean is sometimes not even criticism of Israel. Sometimes it's just recognizing Palestinian humanity, because frankly, that young kids in Palestine, in Gaza, Zionists in particular, see that as a demographic threat. And when you're just saying you belong in this world, children, here's some content for you to watch among the rubble, that inspires life. And that is something that Israel can't abide.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that something just to sit with and ponder for a second? That it's actually a threat to the Israeli project for kids in Gaza to have joy and to feel hope.
To not be terrorized.
And then they conflate that with hatred. Because these folks are completely disinterested in eradicating anti-Semitism. When you take these kinds of stances and you set up doxing campaigns to target somebody who is providing joy for little children who may be amputees or who are starving in the Gaza Strip, it's been weeks.
Plus dozens of family.
Since aid has been allowed in, food. We have no idea what the conditions are really like there. And I saw some images out of the Washington Post that show children who are just skeletons. Like, there could be kids right now wasting away. It's hard for us to even discern because Israel has killed so many journalists and media workers to make it impossible for us to understand the true death toll, the true totality of the brutality. We know it's hundreds of thousands. There's folks still using this 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 figure. I think even using that is misinformation, because we had doctors, 99 doctors and physicians, nurses, medical workers who were Americans write to Biden and Harris in October, and they said at minimum the death toll is 118,000. Lancet, a very well-established medical journal, also did their own analysis, and I think it was over 180K around that exact same time. So we know that the death toll is just absolutely exponentially higher than what's being reported. And Israel is trying to implement their final solution as we speak. So God forbid this woman provide joy for kids there. And apparently she had to take a break after this because of all the harassment she's been facing. Ryan from The Loose says, Miss Rachel took a long break from making vids due to stress. This is part of the reason she took that break. My 2-year-old is going to be pissed.
I just say, all parents out there, you have more programming to feel, less guilty about. I mean, if I was a parent, I would love to find creators like that are willing to stand up for that sort of thing and post that sort of message. And she's absolutely right. And it is a evil shame that so many people like her or Greta Thunberg or these people that have these sort of public-facing roles are made to, even Hassan at that point, like the amount of hate, the amount of smears that come from Zionists, we need to just say, shut up. No.
Yeah. And link our arms around her. It's a good way for us to transition to this story. We had meant to play this yesterday, but Mohsen Mahdawi spoke to CBS News, and this was on Sunday, recorded on Sunday, the day before he was taken by immigration officials, cops, the day before he was detained. He was, Russ, the guy that showed up to his hearing, right? Yep. So we don't know if this was a sham immigration hearing, honestly, because they're trying to meet their quotas, but he was doing everything right. Mohsen Mahdawi, he's Palestinian. He's spoken out against the slaughter, but he is explicitly a peace activist. And he went to go to his immigration hearing and was scooped up and disappeared by ICE officials.
And you mentioned the hearing thing is so important because J.D. Vance and a lot of these guys are saying, well, we've actually been so overwhelmed that we can't, the courts are overwhelmed. They're literally intervening in court dates that have already been scheduled to snatch people up. The idea that they respect or care, that this is all motivated by courts being overwhelmed is just a lie.
It's a lie, and they're also using some of the systems that they put in place to formalize the files or keep track of people who are here in this country without documentation or who may be applying for asylum. They are using those tools to now target those folks, including the Social Security number program that Trump set up in his first term, which allowed people who were here without documentation to apply for non-voting Social Security cards so they could use that maybe as a piece of evidence, like, I'm a good person, I want to be a citizen one day, or maybe if they need a driver's license or some other kind of government documentation. Right now, Trump 2.0 is using that program to zero in on these people and target them like they're criminals when they were all trying to do the right thing. But it's important to play this because they're claiming this guy's a terrorist, and it seems like they probably saw this footage or knew this was happening or knew he was speaking out. I'm not sure about the timeline.
Well, he gave a 60 Minutes interview previous to this, which is, I think, what he, according to him, is what put him on like the lists of all those hardcore Zionist organizations saying.
And this is a separate CBS interview.
Yes, this was a previous interview that was like a few weeks prior to when this interview was recorded.
So here he is explaining in his own words what his activism means.
Democracy are much more tied. The American people are realizing now that there is strong correlation between the injustice that's happening in Palestine and the injustice that's happening here and the attack on free speech.
There's an appointment that you're showing up to.
Correct.
What is this appointment for, and when did it come in?
This appointment is for my citizenship application, the M400 application, which is a naturalization process. It was scheduled on March, I believe, 27th.
After your name has been out there.
Yes. And during my time sheltering in place.
Is this an appointment you've been waiting for years?
I've been waiting for this appointment since February of 2024.
Okay.
It was expected to be the window for it between November and January.
When you got the appointment, what were your thoughts?
My mind went, mixed feelings, right? It's the first feeling of like, I've been waiting for this for more than a year. And the other feeling is like, wait a minute, is this a honey trap? Will I get detained there?
You think they could be calling you in to detain you?
Correct.
If that's the case, why was it important for you to speak with us before showing up there?
Because I believe that this story is very important for the American people. And because I believe that if I get detained tomorrow, Monday, this detention would be unjust and unfair and in violation of the principles of this country.
When you think about perhaps the Khalil case where he was taken at night and we were not able to hear from him after, what do you want people to hear from you in the case that you are detained?
I want people to know that the work and the activism that we have done was centered in the energy of love. We did it because of our love for humanity, our love for justice, our love for human rights. And I want people to know that my compassion extended beyond the Palestinian people. My compassion is also for the Jewish people and for the Israelis as well. So people need to actually look at both sides and figure out what is the truth. Because the accusation that the Palestinian cause and the pro-Palestine movement at Colombia was anti-Semitic is a false accusation. And it is unjust accusation.
You've had time to think about what's happening to you and others. What do you think is the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal, as I see it, is censoring people, preventing them from sharing their truth and controlling them by fear.
You say you're not hiding, you're sheltering in place, but people don't know where you are. Why is that?
Because basically I am in jeopardy. I mean, my freedom is in jeopardy. The courts have not ruled yet on this situation clearly. I believe that the track will be corrected, but now it's a matter of time. It's a storm. The way how I see it, this is a storm. When there is a strong storm, we shelter. When the storm is over, we go out again.
The storm is not over and you're showing up to this meeting. Why?
Because I believe in the cause, the Palestinian cause, and I believe in justice. This meeting, because tomorrow could be actually the day where the storm might take me away. And then my voice may not be heard for a very long time. So I am giving this interview because I have faith. Faith in the people who have open hearts and who don't want to shut their eyes, who want to see the truth for what it is. My people are dying. My family has suffered. My cousins, 6 cousins have been killed. My uncle, I saw him killed in front of my eyes as a child. My best friend was shot in front of my eyes. I was shot in my leg. And all of these efforts are there to silence me, to say nothing about these stories that deserve to be heard.
What a brave, incredible person.
I keep saying them kids, but like, you know, just because I'm like,
He's in his 30s.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I just, this Mahmoud Khalil also, letter from Mahmoud Khalil in the ICE detention center in Louisiana. I just want to read a little bit of this. The incarceration of 70,000 Japanese American citizens is a reminder that rhetoric of justice and freedom obscures the reality that all too often America has been a democracy of convenience. Rights are granted for those who align with power, for the poor, the people of color, for those who resist injustice. Rights are but words written on water. The right to free speech when it comes to Palestine has always been exceptionally weak. Even so, the crackdown on universities and students reveals just how afraid the White House is of the idea of Palestine's freedom entering the mainstream. Why else would Trump officials not only attempt to deport me, but also intentionally mislead the public about who I am and what I stand for? Same thing with Mohsen Mahdawi here. Khalil concludes, I write this letter as the sun rises, hoping that the suspension of my rights will raise alarm bells that yours are already in jeopardy. I hope it will inspire your outrage at the most basic human instinct to protest shameless massacre is being repressed by obscure laws, racist propaganda, and a state terrified of an awakened public. I hope this writing will startle you into understanding that a democracy for some, a democracy of convenience, is no democracy at all. I hope it will shake you into acting before it is too late.
These are modern day freedom fighters, heroes. He understood what he was facing, but as he says towards the end, he's faced worse. He's been shot. He's seen his family killed in front of him, his best friend killed in front of him. He's not afraid. He's not going to be afraid of these fascists, and it's our responsibility to stand up for him. Mahdawi has been a lawful permanent resident of the United States for 10 years. He went in for that naturalization interview in Vermont, where his permanent residence is. He is explicitly a peace activist who has been working with Jewish students on Columbia's campus. Mahdawi, 34, who was active in Buddhist affairs on campus, worked to form a broad-based coalition of advocates for peace in both Israel and Gaza, even as other pro-Palestinian student protesters grew more radical, according to his classmates and associates. Mahdawi condemned anti-Semitism during public protests and deliberately sought to include Jewish and Israeli students in discussions. Last fall, Mahdawi began weekly meetings with Israeli students to discuss their upbringing and beliefs about the long-simmering Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The associate said, he's being more generous than, frankly, I would be. About, like, I don't necessarily want to hear from Israeli students about their experience, frankly, because it's like, I don't want to hear about the aggressor's feelings if they're not standing with the people who are being oppressed. I would be very impatient with that. I'm not as good of a person as Mohsen Mahdawi, who is now rotting in ICE detention, it appears.
And, as a peace activist, like, that's the problem, actually. Because Zionists don't want peace. That's why there can't be a ceasefire or a permanent ceasefire. Any ceasefire that Israel proposes is a temporary one, which allows them to reload and allows IDF to go to some raves and rest for a little bit before they start massacring people again. The truth is that Zionism is about conquest of an area and removing the people from that area. So anybody that says actually we can all coexist in this area is a threat to them. And this is all stuff that we've theoretically said the entire time I've been doing this sort of work and talking about BDS laws. It's here now, and there's no next step. They're just going to keep I mean, what do they accuse him, Mahdawi, of doing?
Being a terrorist,
Yeah.
I think.
Insane.
Insane.
And that's the thing is, like, we can all recognize when Bukele calls Abrego Garcia a terrorist that this is a ridiculous use of the term. We need to now use that same pattern recognition and apply it to when Zionists claim that they're fighting terrorism, because they are not fighting terrorism. They are provoking terrorism by fighting a demographic of people whose land they are stealing with war crimes.
Yep. And I also want to be clear about the accusations about the Trump administration. Basically, I'm not sure if they're actually explicitly calling him a terrorist. The Department of Homeland
Aligned with terrorism.
I think it's the anti-Semitism thing.
Yeah, I mean, the most updated article we have, this is all shrouded in incredible secrecy, is from Gothamist. The Department of Homeland Security has now responded to a request for comment about Mahdawi's arrest, and ICE spokesperson referred questions to the Office of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, whose spokespeople have not responded, but a memo from Rubio states that the Trump administration is seeking to deport Mahdawi because his activities could potentially undermine the Middle East peace process.
Yeah.
Peace!
Ridiculous.
He's literally a peace activist.
The conquest process is what Rubio means in the Orwellian turn of phrase.
Kudos to Congressman Kassar. He was one of the Democrats who voted against the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. Yes. But that seems to be also, Emma, your point when you were asking him, like, is the conversation changing internally in the Democratic caucus? At some point, there has to be a conversation about, overturning that.
I'm bored.
Bill.
I'm not bored. That's such a blasé way to refer to it. I am frustrated by even our most progressive members. Like, Bernie is shouting down Palestine protests at that rally.
Yep, it's a shame. I want to propagandize for that thing, and they're having people taken out because they're putting Palestine flags up by cops.
Why, dude? Like, stop. I mean, even the repetition of Israel has a right to defend itself.
Yep, cut that out too, please.
And like, I think the squad members have been better than Sanders on this in terms of like AOC and Ilhan and of course Rashida Tlaib early on calling it a genocide, speaking out about Israel. But even our most left-wing members of Congress are not meeting the reality of what the situation is, which is that we need a South Africa-style Truth and Reconciliation Commission after a peace process that reintegrates the territory of Israel into one that is a democratic state for Palestinians and Israelis to live side by side. Now, people will say to me, well, you don't think Israel has a right to exist then? I mean, I don't necessarily think that's the right construction. I think Israelis that are there currently have a right to live in peace unless they're war criminals and they should be tried in court, and then we make those determinations. But so the Palestinians. And the question is with Israel having taken so much territory, basically ethnically cleansing the entire Gaza Strip as is their goal, taking so much of the West Bank and settling there, they have created a one-state reality where there's 3 million people in the occupied West Bank who they have complete control over, and then they've created an open-air concentration camp where they're executing a final solution against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip to take that land, to create one state. There will never be two states. Never, ever, ever. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't make predictions. There might be as a step to another. But like in terms of the current facts on the ground, as the Israelis would say, it's impossible unless Israel gives up a bunch of land that it's illegally stolen. And I don't see that coming. So what is the best situation is that we intervene internationally to make sure that we create a state like South Africa where apartheid falls and everybody can have access to that land. And there are still problems in South Africa. The white landowners own like 70% of the farmland, for example. That there has been enough done. But people will say that's impossible. No, the current situation is impossible.
We're paying utopia prices already for apartheid. And the thing is like, please tell me about Israel's right to exist, because I think it's actually something that the reason it's insisted upon is because it's actually really questionable. When we define Israel as a demographic majority of a certain population that wasn't there but could only be produced through conquest and war crimes, which is what Israel has been produced through, doesn't have the right to exist. If we want to talk about some hypothetical Israel, where everyone within that region is given one vote, one man, one vote, one person, one vote, I would say it's probably a compromise to even call that Israel. I would prefer it called Palestine, and then also assure the safety of Jews in that region too. I think generally that shouldn't have been the place for refuge. I think maybe America should have taken more back in the day. But now that this is here, yes, the two-state solution is just a fiction harbored by people that want to let Bibi Netanyahu continue to roll over Palestinian bodies. It will look like the Bantustans of South Africa in any kind of scenario. It's just very clear that that's what Israel sees as the model. That's why they supported South Africa when it was an apartheid state. One person, one vote, and the problem with that is, and you see this everywhere. I remember Robbie Soav being like, well, of course we can't have the right to return. There's so many people in media that are just like, right to return, that's obviously ridiculous. Well, the UN doesn't think so. And I'll just say, like, you cannot displace people using, if you do displace people permanently and settle ground after conquest, that is a war crime. So I don't think war crimes have the right to exist. I think that's what modern Israel is, a giant war crime.
Chris in Texas, Israel should be considered an act of invasion. DSA Aaron in Atlanta, no state has the right to exist, especially an apartheid genocidal fascist state. Randy Gornberg, do Palestinians have a right to defend themselves? Does Palestine have a right to exist? Ask these questions every time you hear someone ask about Israel's rights. That's the other thing, is why I'm pessimistic about the idea of a two-state solution as well, is like, that would necessitate Palestine in the second state having a army. You think Israel's going to agree to that? You think so? Good luck.
To this point of the right of return, like, I'm Jewish, so I've never, I'm not from Israel. No one in my immediate family is from Israel. My grandparents, my great-grandparents, none of us were from Israel. But I have a right to go there and become a citizen, should I so choose. One of my best friends growing up from the same suburb I grew up in San Diego, his name is Sam, shout out Sam, is Palestinian, or Palestinian American, and he does not have a right to immigrate to Israel. He can't just decide because he feels like it that he wants to up and move there. And one more point I wanted to make, there was a fringe radical left-wing thinker during the Obama years. His name was John Kerry, who said famously, Israel can either be a democracy or it can be a Jewish state. It can't be both. Yep.
Exactly right.
John Kerry, the radical
Hamas supporter,
the Antifa Secretary of State,
the upside down red triangle, John Kerry.
I mean, when I look at him, I just think militant.
Wait till Hamas gets a windsurfing.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.